Last week, I was supposed to be responsibly recycling cord from older projects, but while making yet another unnecessarily overcomplicated pattern, I saw a video on Facebook featuring a knot I've never seen before. As someone with several personal issues involving square knots, I felt like this is the perfect alternative. Naturally, that meant I needed a quick and easy practice piece. In my world, a practice piece is simply a project built almost entirely around the knot I'm trying to practice. And what else could I have made, if not a plant hanger? Now this one is about 125 centimeters long, because I made it specifically for my giant window. If I made it any shorter, the plant would sit too high and slowly lose its will to photosynthesize. I like my plants at least somewhat alive. It is also made to fit the pots I actually use, roughly 14 to 16 centimeters in diameter. I was working with 3mm single-twist bobbiny cord, and the measurements are based entirely on my cord and my specific tension. Since I only had one roll of cord, my original plan was to use the cut and glue technique I've relied on multiple times before. But about 7 hours into knotting, I realized the cords might actually be long enough for a short, slightly ridiculous-looking tassel. If I had another roll in the same color and wanted proper dramatic tassels, I would have used 1.8 meters instead of 1.6. And if I were using the budget cord from the range, or if my knot tension was any looser, I am pretty sure I would have needed at least 1.8 meters for cut and glue technique, or closer to 2 meters for a normal-looking tassel. Anyway, I'm just saying, my own measurements can differ by half a meter depending on the cord type, the brand, the tension, my emotional stability, and possibly the current geopolitical situation. There. My conscience is clear now. Now it's time to move on to the actual knot in question. This knot starts with the most basic half-square knot, or spiral knot. Honestly, I do not claim to know the official knot terminology. I always start my square and spiral knots from the right side, and for the life of me, I cannot do them comfortably the other way around. Here, one cord ends up facing the back, and the other faces the front. The cord facing the back slides under the closest filler cord. The cord facing me jumps over the closest filler cord. Then, filler cords become the working cords, and I make another half-square knot from the exact same side where this whole adventure started. It feels like some strange combination of a spiral knot and a switch knot, created by someone who got bored halfway through inventing macrame. What I really like about it, no matter how many knots I make, all the cords stay roughly the same length. Since the cords switch places on every knot, I can knot the entire top section without adding those random-looking switch knots in the middle. When it comes to the basic square and spiral knots, technically you can avoid switch knots by using longer working cords and shorter filler cords, but I am the last person who should be out here calculating multiple cord lengths on purpose. And the answer to the question no one asked is yes. I could have made the whole thing using basic square knots, but then this would stop being a practice piece and turn into a very elaborate waste of my time. I tried to keep this video short with no over-explanations. I know some people skip huge chunks of my videos. I get it. I've done it since my very first project. We all want to get back to knotting instead of watching the same double half-hitch 47 times. But when I see my designs in the wild, I know exactly which part was deemed unimportant. I'm slightly judging that eagerness. Not in a mean way, just in an I know what you did, and I hope you noticed the mistake way. Then again, maybe I don't even care. I'm just feeling lazy today and want to get through this video as fast as possible. Anyways, it's shorter, for unknown reasons. Oh, and if this project starts testing your patience while I continue calling it easy, welcome to the channel! You must be new here.
night is quiet, heavy with regret. I trace the roads where all our hearts had met. Your shadow falls across the empty floor, a ghost that lingers knocking at my door. The silence whispers secrets I can't hide, a fragile truth that tears me up inside. And still I walk beneath this endless rain. I'm reaching out, but you are far away. The echoes haunt the words I try to say. My heart still burns, although the flame is gone. I sing your name, but know I stand alone. The tears keep falling, rivers through my hands. A dream of love I cannot understand. Yet in the dark, your memory remains, a fragile flame that nothing can contain. The dawn awakens, but it feels the same. A hollow morning, nothing left to claim. I walk in circles, searching through the haze. Each step a memory I can't erase. The world keeps moving, but I stand behind, a prisoner to the echoes in my mind. And still I wait for something never near. I'm reaching out, but you are far away. The echoes haunt the words I try to say. My heart still burns, although the flame is gone. I sing your name, but know I stand alone. The tears keep falling, rivers through my hands. A dream of love I cannot understand. Yet in the dark, your memory.
I always set my first half hitch into place manually because no matter how confident I feel, deep down I know only the second half hitch can truly be trusted to fall into place on its own. Relying on the first half hitch to behave properly is reckless. One of my biggest pet peeves in my own work is seeing tiny gaps between hitch rows, and making sure it doesn't happen takes less than a second. Just a small push with my nail, and suddenly the row looks clean and neat.
I'm left with silence and a heart grown cold. The song we started keeps me whole. The rain may fall, but still I will remain. A voice unbroken, rising through the pain. And in the silence, love still speaks the same. Forevermore, I whisper out your name. Though time may steal the pieces of my soul, your flame still burns, night is quiet, stars begin to fade. I walk the path where all our dreams were made. Your shadow lingers softly on the wall, a memory that answers when I call. The gentle wind still carries your perfume, a haunted trace that fills the empty room. I reach for you, but nothing's in my hands. Can you hear my voice when the silence grows? Do you feel my love in the...
Should I explain the sudden appearance of triple half-hitches in my work? Recently I learned something that feels painfully obvious in hindsight. When two half-hitch rows turn a corner, one row has a slightly longer distance to travel around that curve, which means it naturally needs more knots. Very obvious information. No idea how I managed to miss it for so long. Maybe it was my lifelong habit of skipping huge chunks of tutorials. Maybe the creators I watched never mentioned it because they didn't know either. The mystery remains unsolved. Either way, I'm older now. Not necessarily smarter, but definitely more experienced. And honestly, quite happy about finally learning a way to make my work look slightly less sloppy.
The morning light reveals an empty chair. I turn around, but you are never there. The clock keeps moving, yet my heart won't heal. It beats for something time can't still conceal. I hear your laughter drifting in my mind, a song of love I'll never leave behind. But in the dark, the truth is all too clear. Can you
I'm almost sad the comments are turned off, because I genuinely like to ask if anyone knows the actual name of this knot. But then I remember why the comments are off, and the sadness quickly turns into peace and serenity. Maybe I should just call it the spirally switchy knot. Honestly, not even the longest or strangest knot name out there.
holds the pain I knew in the midnight hour? I can see your face in the passing years. Nothing takes your place. Though the world moves on, I am standing still, chasing after echoes I can't fulfill. If I could turn the hands of time tonight, I'd hold you close and make the wrongs alright. But now I stand with only dreams to keep, a fragile song I whisper in my sleep. Can you hear my voice when the silence grows? In the breeze that blows, every step I take leads me back to you. Every word I write holds the pain I knew. In the midnight hour, I can see your face. In the passing years, nothing takes your place. Though the world moves on, I am standing still, chasing after echoes shadows fall across the room. The silence lingers, heavy, true. Your voice still echoes in my chest, a ghost that never comes to rest. Every night I reach for you, but the dark is all I find. Do you hear me calling out your name? Do you feel the same cold in the rain? I'm breaking slowly, trying to hold on, but without your light, the night feels so long. Memories bleed like ink on stone. I'm with the crowd, yet still alone. The piano plays, but every note just sinks me deeper as I flow. Do you hear me calling out your name? Do you feel the same cold in the rain? I'm breaking slowly, trying to hold on, but without your light, the night feels so long. If love was forever, why did you fade? I'm lost in the silence, afraid of the day. The emptiness whisper, the shadows reply. I'm still the same man who can't say goodbye. Do you hear me calling out your name? Do you feel the same cold in the rain? I'm breaking slowly, but I'll keep holding on till the night fades away and the memory is gone.
I used to think I was the only person capable of making this mistake, until I saw another plant hanger in the wild. So I will repeat this yet again. I do not grab the next section randomly. I make sure it's actually the section I'm supposed to connect to the already knotted part. Sometimes the easiest way to figure it out is to hang the whole thing up and use basic common sense. Other times, the decision can be made entirely based on vibes.
A fragile flame, a fading light, but in the silence I still hear 1,000 echoes drawing near. Carry me through the fire, through the storm. Lift me where the shadows can't be borne. Even when the night is closing in, I will rise again. I will rise again. fragile strength inside my heart. Through every tear, through every scar, I'll remember who we are. Carry me through the fire, through the storm. Lift me where the shadows can't be borne. Even when the silence takes its stand, I will rise again. I will rise again.
My dedication is on another level when I get up from the couch just to film 15 seconds of me flipping the whole thing over before connecting it all with the exact same pattern. On one hand, I hope anyone who genuinely needed this information stopped watching about half an hour ago. On the other hand, I've seen things.
The river carries all the words we lost. Each wave a memory, each tide a cause.
This next step is unnecessary for people who can place a gathering knot perfectly in the center. I am not one of those people. So instead, I make 6 knots on each pointy section to give myself a somewhat reliable guide for where the gathering knot should go, if I want to achieve anything resembling symmetry.
Where I once bled, I follow where the shadows lead. Guide me through the forest of the rain, where every branch still calls your name.
Before finishing, I will absolutely hang this thing up and put a plant pot inside to make sure all the cords are sitting neatly. But no one can force me to perform that circus act on camera.